Marcus Johnson woke up late, and immediately knew something was wrong. Not the usual wrong. Not the quiet panic of a single father who'd slept through his alarm or the dull ache in his chest that came every morning before he remembered his wife was gone. This was sharper. Colder. The kind of wrong that froze the body before the mind could catch up. There was warmth beside him. Marcus lay still, eyes half open, staring at the cracked white ceiling of his one-bedroom apartment. The hum of the old refrigerator came from the kitchen. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop. Everything sounded normal. Too normal. Then he felt it again. A slow, steady rise and fall. Breathing that was not his. His heart slammed so hard it felt loud enough to wake the dead. Carefully, so carefully, he turned his head. A woman lay next to him. Not someone he recognized. Not someone who belonged in this space. Her hair spilled across his pillow in dark waves, her face calm, unguarded, almost peaceful. She wore his grey work shirt, the one with the faded collar and the small paint stain near the hem from years ago, back when he still did side jobs fixing apartments to make rent. For a split second, Marcus wondered if he was still dreaming. Grief did strange things to the mind. Exhaustion did worse. Then she shifted slightly, murmuring in her sleep, and reality hit him like ice water. A stranger was in his bed. Every instinct screamed danger. He scanned the room without moving his head. His wallet was still on the dresser. His phone lay charging near the door. Nothing looked disturbed. No broken locks. No signs of forced entry. His gaze flicked to the bedroom doorway. Lena's small backpack hung on the hook by the wall, just where he'd left it the night before. A tiny pink shoe peeked out from under the couch in the living room. His daughter was still here. That was when fear truly set in. Marcus inhaled slowly, trying to calm his racing thoughts. He had no weapon. No backup. Just a tired body and 6 years of learning how to stay quiet for a child who had nightmares. He started to slide his arm out from under the blanket. The woman's eyes opened. They were sharp. Alert. Not startled at all. She looked directly at him and said, in a low, even voice, "If you scream, you'll wake your daughter. And I really don't want that." Marcus stopped breathing. His mind latched onto one word, daughter, and refused to let go. His throat went dry. "How?" he whispered, his voice barely working. "Do you know about my daughter?" She sat up slowly, deliberately, as if every movement was calculated not to provoke him. The shirt shifted on her shoulders, too big for her, undeniably his. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and glanced briefly toward the door, where Lena slept. "I've been watching this place since midnight," she said. "You check on her every 47 minutes. You hum when you're nervous. And you lock the door twice, even though the second lock doesn't work." Marcus's pulse thundered in his ears. No one noticed those things. No one cared enough to. "Who are you?" he asked. For a moment, she studied him, really studied him. Not like a stranger. Like someone confirming an answer they already feared was true. Then she said quietly, "I didn't come here for you. I came here because you're the only man who didn't sell me out." Marcus felt the world tilt. Nothing in his life had prepared him for those words. Before he could respond, a small sound came from the living room, a soft footstep, followed by a sleepy voice. "Daddy?" Marcus's blood ran cold. Marcus was already moving before his mind fully caught up. He slid out of bed and reached the doorway just as Lena appeared, rubbing one eye, her small frame swallowed by her oversized pajama shirt. "Hey," he whispered quickly, forcing calm into his voice as he crouched. "What are you doing up, Peanut?" "I heard talking," she said, her gaze drifting past him, curiosity sharpening through sleepiness. Behind him, the woman stood now, barefoot on the floor, his shirt falling to mid-thigh. She didn't advance. She didn't hide. She simply waited, hands visible, posture relaxed but alert, like someone who understood timing. Lena saw her. Children always noticed what adults wished they wouldn't. Her brows knitted together as she looked from the stranger to Marcus, then back again. "Daddy," she said softly, "who's that?" Marcus's chest tightened. Lies came easily when they were about bills or broken toys. This one felt heavier. He glanced back at the woman, silently warning her not to speak. "She's a friend," he said carefully. "She had a long night." Lena tilted her head. Her eyes dropped to the shirt. Recognition flickered there, brief but unmistakable. "That's yours," she said. The woman smiled then, not wide, not forced. Something small and human. "It is," she said gently. "I hope you don't mind. I was cold." Marcus shot her a look, but Lena had already stepped closer, unafraid. She studied the woman's face the way children did, searching for truth without knowing the word for it. "You smell like Daddy," Lena announced. The woman inhaled sharply, just once, as if something inside her cracked. "That's good," she said. "He smells like home." Marcus felt his stomach drop. He scooped Lena up before she could say anything else. "Okay," he said, firmer now. "Back to bed." Lena protested weakly but let herself be carried. As Marcus tucked her in, smoothing her hair the way he always did, he felt the weight of eyes on his back. Watching. Measuring. When he returned to the living room, the woman was standing near the window, looking out at the waking city. Dawn light traced the sharp lines of her face. In daylight, she looked familiar in a way that made his chest ache. "Start talking," Marcus said. "Now." She reached into the small purse on the chair and pulled out a sleek black card, setting it on the table between them. He didn't touch it at first. Just stared. The name hit him like a punch. Ava Laurent. Chief Executive Officer, Laurent Dynamics. Marcus's breath left him in a slow, disbelieving exhale. He'd seen her face on screens in subway stations, on news segments playing in break rooms he no longer worked in. Always composed. Untouchable. "This isn't funny," he said. "I'm not joking," she replied. "And I didn't choose your bed for drama. I chose it because someone tried to poison me last night, and every person paid to protect me is compromised." She met his eyes, and for the first time, he saw fear there. Controlled. Buried deep. But real. "You," she continued, "are the only name in my files who said no when everyone else said yes." Marcus swallowed. A memory stirred, an email, long deleted. A meeting that ended his career. "I don't know what you think you know," he said slowly, "but you shouldn't be here." Ava's phone vibrated on the table. She didn't look at it. "I know," she said. "That's why I am." Marcus stared at the buzzing phone, a terrible sense of inevitability settling in his bones. Marcus didn't pick up the phone. He didn't even ask who was calling. Some instincts were older than fear, and this one told him that whatever waited on the other side of that vibration would change the shape of his life if he acknowledged it. Ava finally reached for it herself, silencing the screen without looking. "It'll keep trying," she said. "They always do." Marcus crossed his arms, grounding himself. The apartment felt smaller now, the walls closer. "You don't get to walk into my home," he said, low and controlled, "drop a name like that, and expect me to play along." "I don't expect you to," Ava replied. "I'm hoping you remember." That did it. A flash of another room, brighter, cleaner. A conference table that smelled like new wood and ambition. Marcus, 10 years younger, sitting at the far end with a laptop open and a knot in his stomach he couldn't explain yet. Back then, he was still Marcus Johnson, junior systems engineer. Not Marcus Johnson, night shift warehouse clerk and single dad. "I remember a lot of things," he said. "Most of them didn't work out well." Ava nodded, as if she'd anticipated that answer. "You were working for Helix Subsystems. 3rd floor. Window seat. You were quiet in meetings, but you asked the kind of questions that made people uncomfortable." Marcus stiffened. He hadn't told anyone that. Not even his wife, back when there had been time for confessions that didn't involve grief. She continued, you were sent a data packet labeled redundancy audit. It wasn't. It was customer behavioral data, raw, unfiltered. Selling it would have made Helix millions. It would have destroyed the privacy of people who never consented. His mouth went dry. You refused to sign off, Ava said. You escalated it. Twice. When that didn't work, you emailed a journalist anonymously. Marcus looked away. He remembered the night clearly. His wife asleep on the couch, one hand resting on her pregnant belly. His finger hovering over the send button. The sick certainty that pressing it would cost him everything. It had. They fired you, Ava went on. Labeled you difficult. Unreliable. No references. Your name quietly circulated. Marcus laughed once, bitter. That's one way to put it. What you don't know, she said softly, is that the leak stalled an acquisition. My acquisition. I was supposed to be the expendable executive blamed when things went wrong. He looked back at her then, truly looking. You saved my career before it existed, Ava said. I just didn't know who you were. Silence settled between them, thick and heavy. From the bedroom, Lena shifted in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible. The sound anchored Marcus to the present, even as the past clawed its way back into him. So you tracked me down, he said. Because of a decision I made 10 years ago. Yes, Ava replied. Then, after a pause, and because you disappeared. Marcus's jaw tightened. People don't disappear by accident. Ava's gaze softened, just slightly. I know. For the first time since waking up, Marcus felt the weight of her presence not as a threat, but as a mirror. She wasn't here because he was strong. Or special. She was here because he was predictable in the only way that mattered. He did the right thing, even when it ruined him. Ava stepped closer, lowering her voice. Someone wants me dead because I won't sign off on the same kind of deal you refused. Different decade. Same rot. She held his eyes. I need proof. And I need someone who won't flinch. Marcus thought of hospital bills. Of night shifts. Of a 6-year-old girl who believed her father was invincible. He shook his head. You're asking the wrong man. Ava didn't argue. She simply said, they already found you once. At that moment, Marcus understood with chilling clarity that whatever protection anonymity once gave him was gone. Marcus turned away from her and walked to the small kitchen, gripping the counter until the cheap laminate dug into his palms. He needed something solid. Something real. The apartment smelled faintly of oatmeal and detergent, the ordinary scent of a life carefully kept small. You don't get to say that, he said, his voice carrying despite the distance. You don't get to bring this into my house and pretend it's already here. Ava followed but stopped short of the kitchen threshold, respecting an invisible line. I'm not pretending, she said. I'm trying to be honest before it gets worse. He laughed again, softer this time, more tired. You don't know what worse looks like. She considered him. You lost your wife. The words landed with surgical precision. Marcus closed his eyes. For a moment, he was back in the hospital room, the rhythmic beeping of a monitor flattening into a single endless tone. The nurse's hand on his shoulder. The weight of a newborn placed in his arms at the exact moment the world ended. He turned slowly. You don't say her name like that, he said. You don't say it at all. I'm sorry, Ava replied, and this time, it wasn't calculated. I had to understand you before I came here. I had to know what kind of man would say no when it cost him everything. She reached into her purse again and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges. She handed it to him. Marcus unfolded it. A printout of an old email thread. His words. His phrasing. Redacted names, but unmistakably his voice. I keep copies of everything, Ava said. Especially the things that almost killed me. His hands trembled. Why now? Because last night, someone spiked my drink with something that would have stopped my heart in under a minute. Because this morning, my head of security is unreachable. And because the board vote is in 48 hours. She met his gaze. If I sign, I live. If I don't, they'll make an example of me. Marcus thought of Lena's pink shoe under the couch. Thought of how close danger already felt. And what happens if I help you? He asked. Ava didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced toward the bedroom door, where faint sunlight now slipped under the frame. That, she said carefully, depends on how honest you want to be with your daughter. The words chilled him. Before he could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Once. Twice. Both of them froze. Marcus moved instinctively, placing himself between Ava and the door. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. Another knock. Firmer this time. Maintenance, a man's voice called out. We got a report of a leak. Marcus's eyes flicked to the ceiling. No water stains. No dripping. Nothing. Ava's face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. They found me faster than I expected. The knock came again, louder. Sir? We need to come in. Marcus's mind raced. He hadn't reported anything. No one ever came this quickly in his building. He whispered, Go. Ava shook her head. If I run, they follow. The doorknob began to turn. Marcus made a decision he'd sworn never to make again. He unlocked the door himself. Marcus pulled the door open just enough to fill the frame with his body. A man in a navy blue jacket stood in the hallway, tool belt slung low, clipboard tucked under his arm. He looked ordinary in the way people who didn't want to be remembered always did. Late 30s. Clean shave. Eyes that never quite settled. Morning, the man said. His smile was polite, practiced. Building maintenance. We got a report of a leak from this unit. Marcus didn't move. From who? The man glanced at the clipboard. Upstairs tenant. Water pressure issue. Marcus knew every creak and groan of this building. Pipes complained loudly here. They didn't whisper. And upstairs had been empty for 3 months. There's no leak, Marcus said. You can check with the super. For the first time, the man's smile faltered, just a fraction. Enough. Behind Marcus, a floorboard creaked. Daddy? Lena's voice, small and sleepy, drifted from the bedroom. The man's eyes flicked past Marcus's shoulder, sharp now. Assessing. Counting. Marcus felt something old and feral rise in his chest. There's a child, the man said lightly. All the more reason to make sure everything's safe. No, Marcus replied. That's all the reason you're not coming in. Silence stretched. Somewhere down the hall, an elevator dinged. The man straightened, weighing something. Sir, he said, his voice cooling, this won't take long. Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice so only the two of them could hear. You don't belong here. The man studied him for a long beat, then nodded once. Fair enough. He stepped back. Marcus waited until the man turned the corner before closing the door and locking it, once, twice, then jamming a chair under the handle out of pure instinct. He turned to find Ava already crouched in front of Lena, her posture gentle, unthreatening. Hi, Ava said softly. I'm Ava. Lena blinked at her, then looked up at Marcus. Is she the lady from the picture in your drawer? The room went still. Ava's head lifted slowly. Picture? Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Lena, he said carefully, what picture? The one you hide, she said, matter of fact. With the lady on TV. You look sad when you look at it. Ava's breath caught. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Marcus closed his eyes, memory rushing in uninvited. The folded magazine clipping. Ava's early interview. The night he taped it inside the drawer, not out of admiration, but as proof that doing the right thing hadn't been meaningless. I kept it, he said quietly, mostly to himself. Ava swallowed. You never told anyone. No, he said. I didn't think it mattered. Lena studied Ava again, then smiled. You can stay till Daddy stops being scared. Marcus opened his mouth to correct her, then stopped. Because she was right. Ava reached out, hesitated, then gently touched Lena's hand. I don't want to scare him, she said. I just need his help. Lena nodded solemnly. Daddy helps everybody. Marcus looked at the two of them, his daughter, fearless in the way only children could be, and a woman powerful enough to bend markets, now kneeling on his living room floor. He realized something then, heavy and irreversible. This wasn't about the past anymore. It was about what came for them next. Marcus sent Lena back to her room with a promise of pancakes and cartoons, his voice steady enough to convince her, even if it convinced no one else. He waited until her door clicked shut before turning back to Ava. The apartment felt different now, exposed, like its walls had thinned the moment his daughter spoke the truth out loud. You should leave, he said. Right now. Ava didn't argue. She nodded once, accepting the words without accepting the intent behind them. I will, she said. After I explain why that man didn't force his way in. Marcus folded his arms. You think I didn't notice that? He wasn't there to kill me, Ava said. Not yet. He was there to confirm. Confirm what? That I ran to you. The sentence settled between them like a verdict. Ava moved to the table and sat, grounding herself. In the morning light, the polish she wore like armor was gone. What remained was sharper somehow, more dangerous for being honest. 10 years ago, she said, you sent that email to a journalist named Peter Hale. He published a story that never named names, but it stopped the deal. Marcus nodded. He died 6 months later. Ava's eyes flickered. Heart attack, she said. That's what they called it. Marcus felt a cold line trace its way down his spine. You knew. I suspected, she corrected. Last night confirmed it. She leaned forward. The board members pushing this vote? Same investment shell. Same legal firm. Same pattern of unfortunate obstacles. Marcus exhaled slowly. This wasn't paranoia. This was structure. So why me? He asked again. Why not the FBI? Or your army of lawyers? Because institutions move slowly, Ava replied. And because every lawyer I have is compromised by proximity. Money bends loyalty. You understand that better than most. Marcus thought of overdue notices. Of turning down overtime because Lena had a fever. Of how close he'd come, more than once, to saying yes to things he knew were wrong. You're not wrong, he said quietly. Ava reached into her purse and placed a small flash drive on the table. This is a mirrored archive, she said. Internal communications. Financial routing. Enough to bury them. But it needs context. Human context. Someone who can explain why it's wrong, not just illegal. Marcus stared at the drive. And if I say no? Then I leave, Ava said simply. And I handle it alone. And if they come back? He asked. They will, she said. No hesitation. Whether I'm here or not. Silence stretched. From the bedroom, the faint sound of Lena humming floated out, tuneless, comforting. A reminder of what was at stake. Marcus picked up the flash drive. It was lighter than he expected. Dangerous things often were. You should know something, he said. When I sent that email, I wasn't brave. I was terrified. Ava met his gaze. Courage usually is. He closed his fingers around the drive. You don't stay the night again, he said. You don't involve my daughter. Ava nodded. Agreed. But, Marcus added, his voice firm now, if we do this, we do it clean. No half-truths. No disappearing acts. Ava stood, slipping the strap of her purse over her shoulder. That's why I came to you. They stood there, two people bound by a decade-old decision, listening to the sound of a child who believed her father could fix anything. Marcus looked toward Lena's door, then back at Ava. "This ends," he said, "one way or another." Ava paused at the door. "It always does." Ava didn't leave immediately. She stood by the door for a long moment after Marcus finished speaking, her hand resting on the knob, her posture rigid in a way that told him she was calculating risks he couldn't see. When she finally turned back, her expression had changed, not softer, but exposed, like someone who had taken off a coat they wore too long. "There's something else you should know," she said. Marcus stiffened. "If this is another surprise, save it." "This isn't strategy," Ava replied. "It's context." She moved back into the room and sat on the edge of the couch, the same place Lena usually curled up with her coloring books. The choice felt deliberate, almost reverent. Marcus stayed standing. "I grew up in 7 foster homes," Ava began. "By the time I was 12, I learned 3 rules: don't ask for help, don't trust comfort, and never sleep somewhere you can't escape." Marcus said nothing. He had the sense that interrupting would break something fragile. "When I made CEO," she continued, "people thought I'd won. But power doesn't erase fear, it just gives it better furniture. Every penthouse. Every hotel room. Always guards. Always exits." She glanced toward the bedroom door, where Lena's humming had faded into quiet. "Last night was the first time in years I slept without calculating how fast I could run." Marcus's chest tightened despite himself. "That shirt," Ava said, her voice dropping, "wasn't an accident. I didn't pack clothes. I didn't plan to stay. But when I sat on your bed, I smelled detergent. Cheap detergent. The kind people use when they wash clothes themselves." Marcus looked away, memories pressing in, late nights, folding laundry while Lena slept, pretending the routine was enough to fill the space his wife left behind. "It smelled like safety," Ava said again, softer now. "And I needed that more than armor." A long silence followed. Outside, a siren wailed, distant but insistent. Marcus felt the weight of inevitability settle deeper into his bones. "You can't stay," he repeated, but there was less force behind it now. "I know," Ava said. "I just needed you to understand why I trusted you before you decide whether to destroy me." That got his attention. "Destroy you? If this evidence goes public without the right framing," she said, "they'll paint me as reckless. Emotional. Unstable. A woman who panicked and burned her own company down." She met his eyes. "You're not just my shield. You're my anchor." Marcus swallowed. He saw it then, the pattern, the symmetry. 10 years ago, he'd been the invisible man who refused to play along. Now he was being asked to speak, to give shape to the truth in a way only someone untouched by power could. From the hallway came the sound of footsteps again, lighter this time. Then a pause outside the door. A phone buzzed in Ava's hand. She looked at the screen. This time, she didn't hide it. Unknown number. One message. "We saw you leave the bedroom." Marcus felt his stomach drop. Ava slowly lifted her eyes to him. "They are closer than you think." The siren outside cut off abruptly, plunging the apartment into an unnatural quiet. Marcus knew then that the choice he'd been avoiding was already made. Marcus took the phone from Ava's hand and read the message again, as if repetition might drain it of meaning. It didn't. "We saw you leave the bedroom." Not apartment. Not building. Bedroom. That detail landed harder than any threat. It meant proximity. Surveillance. Intimacy weaponized. "They're inside the building," Marcus said quietly. "Or they were." Ava nodded. "Which means the man at the door wasn't a scout. He was a test." Marcus paced the length of the living room, every step measured. His mind, honed by years of calculating rent against groceries, moved fast when the stakes were real. "If they wanted you dead already," he said, "we wouldn't be talking." "No," Ava agreed. "They want leverage." As if summoned by the word, Marcus's phone buzzed on the counter. His phone. He froze. He hadn't given his number to anyone new in years. Slowly, he picked it up. Unknown number. A single text appeared. She has 36 hours. You have 12. Marcus felt his breath catch. They're not talking about you, he said, already knowing the answer. Ava's jaw tightened. They are. No, Marcus said, the word sharp. They're talking about Lena. The silence that followed was deafening. From the bedroom came a soft thump, Lena turning over in her sleep, oblivious to the clock that had just been started over her head. Ava spoke first, her voice steady but stripped bare of pretense. I can move her. Private transport. Safe house. Marcus rounded on her. You don't take my child anywhere. I'm trying to keep her alive. So am I. Their eyes locked, two people used to control suddenly stripped of it in different ways. Ava exhaled slowly, recalibrating. Then we don't run, she said. Running confirms fear. Marcus shook his head. You don't understand. I've lived invisible for 10 years. That's the only thing that's kept us safe. And now you're visible, Ava replied. Because of me. That much was undeniable. Marcus looked toward the door, then the window, mentally mapping exits, patterns, routines. He saw his life as it truly was, predictable, trackable, fragile. They're watching for panic, he said. For mistakes. Ava's phone buzzed again. Another message. Board meeting moved up. Tonight. Ava let out a humorless laugh. They're forcing my hand. Marcus leaned against the wall, the weight of it all pressing down. He thought of his wife again, not her death this time, but her voice, years ago, telling him that doing the right thing wasn't a guarantee, just a choice. They think I'm your weakness, he said slowly. A disposable variable. Ava studied him. You're not. He met her gaze. Then we use that. She tilted her head, interest sharpening through fear. How? Marcus's mind settled into clarity. We give them what they expect, just not the way they expect it. Ava waited. She had learned long ago when not to interrupt. I don't disappear, Marcus continued. I show up. Publicly. As myself. A single father with nothing to gain. Ava's eyes widened slightly. You put yourself in front of them. I already am, he said. They just don't know what to do with someone who isn't playing for money. From the bedroom, Lena coughed softly, then went quiet again. Marcus straightened. You have your board meeting, he said. I have 12 hours. Ava looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time since she'd arrived, there was something like awe in her expression. This will put you in their crosshairs, she said. Marcus nodded. I've been there before. He glanced at the phone one last time, then set it face down. They wanted a countdown, he said. Let's give them a reason to rush. Ava inhaled, slow and controlled. Then we move now. Marcus turned toward the bedroom, already planning what to tell his daughter when she woke. The clock was ticking. Marcus woke Lena early. Not abruptly. Not with panic in his voice. He moved through the morning the way he always did, quiet, deliberate, controlled. He made oatmeal, sliced bananas, set her favorite blue spoon on the table. Normalcy was camouflage, and he wore it well. Lena yawned as she climbed into her chair. Is today Saturday? She asked. No, Marcus said gently. But we're doing something special. Ava watched from the doorway, dressed differently now. No longer the woman who had slept in his shirt. Her hair was pulled back, face bare of makeup, clothes simple and unremarkable. She looked like someone trying very hard not to be seen. Lena glanced at her. Is she coming too? Marcus hesitated just long enough for Ava to answer. Only for a little while, she said. Then your dad and I have grown-up work to do. Lena nodded solemnly, accepting this without question. She always did. Life had taught her early that explanations were a privilege, not a guarantee. After breakfast, Marcus walked Lena to school himself. He never did on weekdays, work hours didn't allow it, but today, time had shifted its rules. He felt eyes on them the entire walk. Reflections in windows. A car idling too long at a stop sign. Patterns he'd learned to ignore now demanded attention. At the school gate, Lena hugged him tighter than usual. "Don't forget pancakes later," she said. "I won't," Marcus promised, meaning something much heavier than breakfast. He waited until she disappeared inside before turning back. Ava was already on the phone, speaking in clipped, precise tones. "No," she said. "Move it forward again. I'll be there." She hung up and looked at him. "They want the meeting in 6 hours. They think urgency will force compliance." Marcus nodded. "Good." They drove separately. Ava insisted. "Less suspicious. Less traceable." Marcus took the bus, slow, public, visible. He wanted to be seen. He wanted to be ordinary. On the ride downtown, memories crept in uninvited. The last time he'd walked into a corporate building, security had escorted him out. Today, he wasn't going in as an employee. Or a whistleblower. He was going in as a witness. Ava met him 2 blocks from the Lauron Dynamics Tower. She handed him a visitor badge. "You don't speak unless I ask you to," she said. "And if I say stop, you stop." Marcus clipped the badge to his jacket. "And if they threaten my daughter again?" Ava's eyes hardened. "Then I burn everything." Inside the building, the air changed. Cooler. Sharper. Power hummed in the walls. Executives passed without looking at Marcus, dismissing him as background noise, the same mistake they'd made a decade ago. The boardroom doors closed behind them with a sound that felt final. 12 people sat around the table. Smiles. Polite. Predatory. Ava took her seat at the head. She didn't start the meeting. She looked at Marcus and said, "Before we begin, I'd like you to meet the man who refused your offer 10 years ago." Every head turned. Recognition flickered across one face. Then another. Marcus felt the crosshairs settle. He stood straight. The countdown, he realized, had just ended. The room didn't explode the way Marcus expected it to. No shouting. No accusations. Just a subtle tightening of the air, like a storm pulling itself together. A few board members leaned back in their chairs. One man adjusted his cufflinks. Another smiled too quickly. Ava remained standing. "This," she said evenly, "is Marcus Johnson. Former systems engineer at Helix Subsystems. Terminated after refusing to authorize the sale of non-consensual user data." A murmur rippled around the table, quiet, controlled, but unmistakable. Marcus felt his pulse in his ears. He kept his hands still at his sides, his face neutral. Years of being overlooked had taught him the power of stillness. A man near the end of the table cleared his throat. "With all due respect, Ava," he said, "I don't see how this is relevant to today's agenda." Ava smiled. That smile had ended careers. "It's relevant," she said, "because the same shell companies, the same legal firm, and the same data routing architecture you're proposing today were used 10 years ago. The only difference is that this time, I'm the one being asked to sign." She nodded once at Marcus. He took a breath and spoke. 10 years of silence made his voice steadier than he expected. "The data you're calling anonymized isn't," he said. "It never was. It can be reassembled in under 48 hours. I proved that then. I can prove it now." One of the board members laughed lightly. "You expect us to believe a warehouse clerk over a CEO?" Ava cut in. "Yes. I do." She tapped a tablet on the table. Screens around the room lit up. Email chains. Transaction records. Timelines. The room shifted. A man near the center stiffened. "Where did you get this?" Ava's voice dropped. "From the same place you thought I'd never look." Marcus watched their faces change, calculations collapsing, alliances fracturing in real time. He recognized the look. He'd worn it once, before choosing differently. "You're making a mistake," one woman said sharply. "This will destroy investor confidence." Ava leaned forward, palms on the table. "No," she said. "It will restore it." Silence. Then a soft buzz. Marcus's phone. His stomach clenched as he glanced down. Unknown number. One message. "Your daughter is safe. For now." His breath caught. The room blurred at the edges. Ava saw it immediately. Her expression hardened into something lethal. She straightened and said, calmly, "This meeting is adjourned." "You can't," someone started. "I just did," Ava replied. "And for the record, any attempt to contact Mr. Johnson or his family from this moment forward will be interpreted as an admission of guilt." She looked directly at the man who'd laughed earlier. "I suggest you speak to your attorneys." Chairs scraped back. Voices overlapped. Panic leaked through the cracks of composure. Marcus stood there, phone still in his hand, the message burning into his palm. Ava moved to his side. Her voice was low. "They blinked," she said. "That means we're winning." Marcus didn't answer. All he could see was Lena's face at the school gate. Her trust. Her certainty. Winning suddenly felt like the wrong word. He looked at Ava. "This ends today," he said. "One way or another." Ava met his gaze. "I know." Outside, sirens wailed, this time closer. The fallout had begun. The news broke before Marcus even reached the sidewalk. He saw it first on a screen mounted above the lobby cafe, his own face, grainy but unmistakable, frozen mid-step as a headline scrolled beneath it. Lauron Dynamics CEO halts board meeting, whistleblower allegations surface. People around him slowed, some stopping outright. Phones lifted. Murmurs spread. The invisible man was invisible no longer. Ava walked beside him, posture unshaken, as if chaos were a language she spoke fluently. "I triggered the failsafes," she said. "Press releases, regulatory alerts, external audits. Everything went public at once." Marcus exhaled slowly. "So they can't bury it." "They can't touch it," Ava corrected. "And they can't touch you without confirming everything." Outside, black SUVs lined the curb, not the same kind that had followed Ava before. These carried insignias now. Oversight. Law enforcement. Consequences. Ava stopped walking. "This is where we split," she said. Marcus turned to her. "You said we finish it clean." "We did," Ava replied. "The rest is noise." He searched her face, seeing not the CEO now, but the woman who'd slept in his shirt because she was afraid to close her eyes alone. "What about Lena?" he asked. Ava's jaw tightened. "I had eyes on her school the moment the first message came in. She's safe. And she will stay that way." Marcus studied her, weighing truth the way he always had, by consistency, not promises. Finally, he nodded. Ava hesitated, then reached into her bag and handed him a folder. "This is formal," she said. "But it's also personal." Inside were documents. Employment contracts. A newly created role. Chief Ethics Architect. He almost laughed. "You made this just for me." "I made it for the company," Ava said. "You happen to be the only person qualified." Marcus closed the folder. "I don't want power." Ava met his eyes. "Good. Neither do I. I just refuse to give it to people who abuse it." A pause. Then, softer, "I couldn't have done this without you." Marcus thought of his wife again, not her death, but her belief in him. In this version of himself he'd nearly forgotten. "Take care of yourself," he said. Ava nodded. Then, before turning away, she added, "And Marcus?" "Yes?" She smiled, not the weaponized one. The real one. Thank you for answering when the world punished you for it. She walked toward the waiting cars. Cameras flashed. Questions were shouted. Ava Laurent stepped back into her world of power and consequence. Marcus stood there a moment longer, then turned in the opposite direction, toward the bus stop. Toward school pickup. Toward the only thing that had ever mattered. As he boarded the bus, his phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. No threat this time. Just 2 words. It's over. Marcus closed his eyes, unsure whether to believe it, but choosing, for the first time in years, to hope. Marcus picked Lena up from school himself that afternoon. The teachers smiled at him a little longer than usual. A few parents stared, whispering behind hands and phones. He felt the weight of recognition settle over him, not admiration, not judgment, but curiosity. The kind that came when a quiet man stepped out of the shadows. Lena ran into his arms, backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "You're early," she said, grinning. "I told you," Marcus replied, lifting her easily. Pancake day. On the walk home, she talked non-stop, about spelling tests, about a girl who cried because her crayon broke, about how the teacher said being brave didn't mean not being scared. Marcus listened, every word a reminder of what he'd almost lost. Back at the apartment, sunlight poured through the window, warming the familiar, imperfect space. Marcus set the table while Lena climbed onto the counter to help, her feet swinging. A knock came at the door. Marcus froze. Lena looked at him. "Daddy?" He forced a smile. "Stay here." When he opened the door, Ava stood in the hallway, no entourage, no cameras, no armor. Just her, holding a small paper bag. "I won't come in unless you ask," she said. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then stepped aside. "You can come in." Ava entered slowly, taking in the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. She set the bag on the table. "I brought syrup," she said. "The real kind." Lena slid off the counter and approached her. "You came back," she said, pleased. Ava knelt to her level. "I said I would." They ate together, pancakes, laughter, normalcy stitched back together with fragile care. Ava watched Marcus and Lena interact, something in her expression softening with every exchange. Afterward, Ava stood by the door, the moment stretching thin. "I'll be leaving the city," she said. "For a while. Let things settle." Marcus nodded. "That's probably smart." She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out the gray shirt, washed, folded, familiar. "I wanted to return this," she said. "But I also wanted you to know something." Marcus took it, the fabric warm from her hands. "I wore your shirt because I needed to remember what a good man feels like," Ava said quietly. "And because I think I finally know what home means." The words hit him harder than any threat ever had. Ava straightened, composure returning. "Take care of her," she said. "And of yourself." "You too," Marcus replied. She left without looking back. Marcus closed the door and leaned against it, breathing in the scent of detergent and sunlight and possibility. Lena tugged his hand. "Daddy," she said, "you still scared?" Marcus looked down at her, then at the shirt in his hands. "No," he said honestly. "But I'll always be careful." That night, after Lena fell asleep, Marcus folded the shirt and placed it back in the drawer, not as proof of survival this time, but as a reminder of who he was when it mattered most. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, the home held steady.